All right. Hey there, everyone. I'm glad that you guys tuned in to watch this video. I'm here with buddy Chris Pearson. He is email marketer, awesome copywriter. He's worked in the e-com space for a pretty decent amount of time right now, doing automations, campaigns, and he's just got like a really good knack for all the tech stuff. Like he knows his way around it like really well, and he writes awesome copy. So welcome Chris Pearson from Pearson Copy. And today we're going to be looking at this email from King Arthur Baking Company. I'm sure you've seen their flour all around the world in your grocery stores. I don't know, Chris, have you seen it out there, or is it just an
Yeah,
East Coast thing?
no, I've seen it here in Colorado for sure. There's the brands here are on the grocery shelves. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we're going to take a look at this email, kind of peel it apart, talk about all the great things that it's doing, and then also just go through some ideas that we would have to add on to this and just talk email. So subject line, freeze now, feast later. And then we get into the email. So what I like about this email right off the bat is, of course, that it's this personalized message. It's not like you're getting one of these like digital billboard kind of things from a big brand. So it feels really personal. It's sent from Sarah, the test kitchen manager. And it's their like Sunday recipe inspiration. So do you have anything on that?
yeah. So the personal feel I really like, especially from bigger brands. I think many of them think they can't do something like this, or they can't say, "Hey, this is an email from Sarah, our test kitchen manager, and she's going to talk about this recipe," because they feel like they're too distant from the customer. But one of the things that these big brands can do, and I think they miss out on, is leaning into the customer more with that personal connection. Like Sarah from the test kitchen manager, or Bob, the dog trainer at a kennel that sells dog products and stuff, or just somebody behind the scenes that can give an insight of what's going on and have some kind of character or human persona that people can connect with. It helps a ton.
Yeah, for sure. And what about for like brands that you think like, because I've had it before where it's like, well, we don't really have someone that we can send the emails from. Like, would you just like go in and be like, right, well, we can kind of create a persona and that's okay too?
Yeah, so there's different ways you can do it, right? So if you're kind of unsure of like, well, I don't have a Sarah or a Bob or whatever to send from, or I'm the founder and I don't want to be front facing, I don't want to be public facing, you could do something like what's that brand? Dr. Squatch. So I don't know if you've come across their brand,
Yeah.
but they actually have a caricature, or like a mascot almost. They have that gorilla monkey looking dude, right? And that's who is out front of the brand saying, "Hey, I'm Dr. Squatch, and I'm representing the brand." So you can do that. You can create a character, kind of like a mascot, like for a baseball team, or for a football team or something. Not to bring too many sports references in, but you can have some kind of character, or like Mickey Mouse at Disney World or something. That is an option too. So there's a hybrid, right? So get creative with it. And if you're like, I don't have a Sarah, but we're way too like corporate heavy, like not making a connection, meet in the middle somewhere with like a mascot of some kind.
Yeah. And this way you can actually build a relationship with the people that are on your
Yeah.
list, instead of just being this brand logo.
Right. And one more thing on that too, without a persona or a character, it's really hard for a brand to actually carry values and beliefs. So Dylan, you and I have opinions on certain things, and we have beliefs behind those opinions, and we have certain values we live by. Every human has that, whether they realize it or not. And when you're a big corporation or a big brand, it's harder to like put those forward and have connection emotionally because of that. Whereas if you have a mascot like Dr. Squatch or a person like Sarah, you can talk about those opinions now, and people are like, oh my gosh, I agree or I disagree. Either's fine, and you can actually have that conversation now. Whereas with the big brand, you can't really do that, because if a big brand says I believe X, it doesn't feel real. It feels posed. It just feels like, oh, you're just saying that because you want our attention. Whereas if Sarah from this brand says that, it feels like a real person's talking.
Yeah. And it's evoking that emotion. And that's
It
really
is.
like the thing that's building the connection between the brand and the subscriber, is that emotional connection, you know? Cool. So let's go into this. So
Yep.
as my family slips slides into busy season, nothing makes me feel like I've kind of sort of got my act together, like a freezer full of clearly labeled and neatly packed baked goods. From now until November, our calendar is jam-packed with weddings, Jewish holidays, and oh yeah, a move across several state lines. If I put in some time to stock the freezer now, I know that breakfast and lunch and the ever important dessert are at least partially accounted for. So what I love about this is it's so real and it's so human. Like Sarah's
Yep.
talking about all of these things that are going on in life, like with fall coming, like we have all this stuff going on, weddings, Jewish holidays, oh yeah, and we're moving. And like I feel like we can all relate to that, like with fall coming, like it feels like kind of like vacation mode is over and all
Yep.
of this stuff is going on, and to top it off, we're also moving. And it really just sets up the entirety of the email for like, you know, freeze now, feast later.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, the concept they set in the subject line, I think at first glance it seems really basic. It's like, oh yeah, no kidding. Like if I had time to do that, is like maybe the objection to that subject line. If I had time to freeze stuff and bake and freeze and like for later, I would. And that's the first thing that either Sarah or whoever wrote this copy did, is like, oh, the objection is if I had time. And it's like, well, Sarah doesn't have time. Look at all the stuff she's doing. Like this is how we all feel right now. Like summer is coming to a close, fall and autumn starting, and it's like holiday season's right around the corner. You can feel it. It's kind of in the air, right? It's like, oh dang, we're about to like ramp up into busy season. And yeah, just this the specific details, clearly labeled and neatly packaged baked goods, jam-packed with weddings, Jewish holidays, and oh yeah, move across the states, several state lines. Um, like you feel like you're leaning into Sarah's life. And it's so relatable too. Like you said, relatability is one of the biggest reasons why I love using stories and just personal anecdotes in emails, because it's like, oh, I get you. I understand what you're going through because I've gone through the same thing or something similar. And again, the underpinning thing here, the linchpin to all this is emotional connection. I feel like I know Sarah just from that one paragraph. I'm like, oh, I know who Sarah is. Like I know somebody who's like her, and I know who Sarah is. And that's when brands, that's when they hit gold, because it's like that emotional connection is what you're going for, and that's when you can say, hey, by the way, buy this, and people trust you because of it.
Yeah, totally. And it's built like you said, it's building trust. It's like you're going to buy from people that you trust and people that you know and people that feel like they're friends, you know?
Yep. Yep. People buy from people.
Yeah, so this next section, when I'm thinking about the best mix of freezables, I aim for a balance of sweet, savory, raw, and baked, utilitarian, and just for fun. On the practical side of things, I've got bags and bags of baked muffins, which defrost quickly with the help of the microwave. For go time breakfast and desperation snacks, I love hearty, wholesome brand muffins, and the zucchini carrot muffins provide a home for my aimless vegetables. My 1-year-old scarfs them down, and let's be real, my baking is wholly determined by her whims.
I think that's my favorite. My favorite line is my 1-year-old scarfs them down, and let's be real, my baking is wholly determined by her whims. That could be its own email series. Is her 1-year-old's whims. Like she bakes stuff, gives it to her 1-year-old, whatever the 1-year-old says, that's what happens. Like, or I'm craving, unicorn muffins or something. It's like, okay, well, I gotta get muffins with sprinkles now. Like, and that like I think this brand could use that as a way to just, I don't know, get more personal with it too. Like this is definitely personal, but like adding Sarah's daughter or child, I don't know if she said daughter or son, but adding a child in and just saying, hey, this is a journal from my kid, and this is what they said about my my baking. Like that'd be brilliant. I'd love that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like think of all the like TikTok videos or Instagram reels or whatever
Oh
that
my
are just
gosh.
like parents like filming their kids doing these wild things. I think you were
Yeah.
telling me about the kid that the dad that has his
Yeah,
daughter
I think
worth of water,
it's
and it's like,
uncle and niece. Yeah, I think it's an uncle and niece, and he goes
okay.
over and visit, and he sets his niece up on his lap at the table, and he has her take like an orange juice thing and pour it into a glass, and he films it. And he just watches her, and he's like, just make sure nothing falls off the table. But this girl, she's like 3, 4, maybe 5, and she's just dumping it everywhere. And like he's got like dozens and dozens of videos, and she's getting better at it with each video. But it's just like this wholesome, just good feeling. Like, yep, that's a kid. Like that's awesome, and it feels good. Doing something like that where Sarah has her kid basically help her bake the stuff and do like reels like that. I mean, it would pair with this type of email so well.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. And like again, like building that like deeper relationship, you know?
Mhm.
Um
Yep.
I also what I like about this section is it kind of like answers, it's actually a solution to their objection, like freeze
Mhm.
now, feast later, right? And then it's like, well, actually the solution to having more time is by like sitting down, baking all this stuff, getting in the freezer so that you can
Yep.
use it at all of these different times throughout the week or during the day. Um,
Yep.
so
That's a
that's
great
really
point.
cool.
The desperation snacks of like I literally have nothing and I don't know where to go. If I had something, I would eat it. And you're like, oh, I froze this. I have it. I can just throw it in the microwave, or I can just heat it up or something. Like that. That answers that objection perfectly, right?
Yeah,
Is when you don't have time later, it's because you spent time now to be able to support that whatever you're doing later because you're so busy.
totally.
Aimless vegetables. That's I instantly got an image when I read when you read aimless vegetables. I was like, yeah, I know exactly what those are. Yeah, the copy in this is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. And it reads so like a personal letter, and it doesn't have that
Mhm.
kind of like copywriting feel where it feels
Yeah,
like you're
it
trying to
doesn't
be
feel like it's
sold on
forced.
something, you know?
Yep. I the this is a little bit of an admittance, but Sex and the City, the show.
Mhm.
So I've watched that. I've watched all the movies, right? And listening to you read this, I'm like, this is almost like the background, like the narrator's voice of that show. It's just light. It's very like just narrative. Like it's talking about the situation. It's giving you all the details, and you're filling it in as you're reading it. Like the image is being painted in your head, in your mind of what's actually going on. But there's the details are just enough to give you the pieces you need for the set, and your brain's doing all of the organizing and saying, "Oh, this is what it looks like in my mind." And that I think that's why it doesn't feel like it's copy or you're getting sold, and it feels like a story, or it feels like you're a part of it. Is because I'm not trying to make you click a link. What I'm trying to get you to do is imagine the situation, the scenario that I'm in right now as a person, and I want you to join me.
Right, yeah. And it's like that painting that picture also like you can imagine as the reader, like you're thinking as you're reading it, like, oh, how can I do this? You know,
Mhm.
like how does this apply to my life? So you're making
Yep.
an impact and solving a problem for the reader, which is great.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So hiding among the muffins are waffles, which re-crisp in the toaster in a matter of minutes, right from frozen. Last on my sensical list is a sliced sourdough bread for endless tomato sandwiches. 'Tis the season, and as well as grilled cheese croutons for panzanella and breadcrumbs. And for funsies, chocolate pan de cristal, which makes a perfect afternoon pick me up when paired with coffee. Thick slices of whole grain banana bread. I cut the parchment that lined the pan into squares to separate the pieces so they don't glom together as one. Marbled matcha milk bread for great French toast, shaped but unbaked, never fail biscuits, and balls of chocolate chip cookie dough. This freezer tray means I don't even have to scoop.
Whew,
That okay, so just like that last line.
that sounded fun to read.
This freezer tray means I don't even have to scoop. I'm thinking like, geez, like if you're really into baking and you know, like you make like a huge batch of chocolate chip cookies,
Yep.
right? You take the dough and freeze it and then you go to cook it later. Like I'm just imagining trying to like ram a spoon into it and the spoon bending because it's frozen. And like this is like this whole section is great. And like right at the end, it's like that sounds like a problem that people have that bake a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
like making a big batch, freezing it, and then trying to get it somewhere. And it's like that like kind of hidden link in their freezer tray just kind of creates some curiosity. You're like, oh, what's that? Maybe I need one of these.
Yeah. 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 No, and I think people who are watching this may have noticed that there's a lot of links in this email in this copy. But there's a duality here. There's the leaning in to read it because it feels so like it feels like I'm watching a story happen, right? It's unfolding in my mind. I'm a part of it, and I don't feel like I'm being sold. The other part of it is if I get curious, like you said about the freezer tray, of like, oh my gosh, I need that. Like if I could have a freezer tray and I don't have to scoop anymore, like I'm gonna click that link and go check it out. If Chocolate Panda Cristal sounds good, I'm gonna go click and look at it because I feel so good about reading this email. It makes me feel so warm and like this person, Sarah, knows exactly what I'm going through, or this is exactly what I want for my kitchen in my baking session or whatever it may be. You just feel compelled to click through because it feels so natural to. And that's something, another thing too, is people, the whole idea of giving value in email or giving value in marketing. Giving value isn't necessarily just a list of things like a listicle, right? Giving value can be entertainment. Like this is entertaining. Like when you were reading those 2 paragraphs, I was like, alliteration. I want to see this kitchen. I want to meet Sarah. She sounds like a great person. The way she writes is phenomenal. Like I want to be a part of this life, right? That is value. That's entertainment, right? And so leaning in with the story and using that to get people's attention and bring them in. And then also saying, hey, by the way, if you're interested, here's a link to the thing. If this is what catches your attention, click it without even saying like click it, just here's the link. And people know inherently that if there's an underlined word with a different color, it's a link.
Yeah.
Those two things paired, I think, is why you can put so many links in this email. If I were to pop out of the story here and say, oh, click this link for chocolate chip cookie dough, you'd be like, whoa, hey, you pulled me out of the story. Like, what the hell? I want the story back. And you're not going to click it because it pulled you out of the story, right? Like if you're in the middle of a movie and somebody blares off an air horn, it's like, what the hell, man? Like, get out of here. Like, this is dumb. I want my money back, right? That's kind of the same thing with this email is the story brings you in and you just suggestively say, hey, here's the zucchini carrot muffins. Here's the waffles. Here's the sliced sourdough bread I'm talking about. But you don't break the story, right? You don't break the story.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's done really well in that sense. And dude, I mean, this N for funsies, this section there, like, I don't know, like the perfect afternoon pick me up with paired with coffee. Like, I'm just thinking of like it does like create this like kind of ideal version of life in your mind. You know, like as you're reading this, you're not thinking about all the things that are hard or stressful about life. Like you're thinking of like a nice fall day, you know, you're on the porch and leaves are coming down and you have your cup of coffee and this awesome, just like delectable freaking piece of Panda Cristal or the banana bread. And like, oh, it's so awesome. And
that's what we're talking about, right? Is like that one line makes a perfect afternoon pick me up paired with coffee. Your brain went, oh, I'm going to fill that in. And all the stuff you just talked about, your brain's filling it in. That's what story does, right? It offers the opportunity, that movie in your mind. And like, I don't know, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's just the, which one here? Oh, where'd it go? Grilled cheese, croutons, panzanella. Anyway, there's a line here, toast, that did the same thing for me, like that for you. And then there's one in here, if I can find it, but it just like, it took me to a moment. I'm just like, oh, that's exactly what I want. Like, that's how I want to feel. And yeah, you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. And it's like, so then like to kind of like backtrack, like these stories are evoking emotions in us, right? Like we're you know, painting a picture in our own mind of our own experiences or how we want to feel. And then, but that's related back to Sarah. Sarah's creating that for us. And then that relates back to the brand. So it's like all the things that we're feeling, we're at the end of the day, we're projecting those feelings onto the people that are giving the feelings, which is the baking company, King Arthur Flour.
Right. And I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if people go to the grocery store, say, see this brand and go, oh, Sarah. Yeah. Like Sarah wrote me an email from them and that's why I'm going to get it.
For sure.
Right. And that's, I mean, it's the same way people buy things now, even outside of email. It's just like, hey Dylan, I'm looking for a pair of socks. I hike a lot, I camp. I'm looking for a very specific type of brand. It needs to be durable, comfortable, wear for long hours. Can you name a brand for me? And I think I know what you're going to say, but
Darn Tough.
Darn Tough, right? So, and that's it, right? Like, so whenever I think of Darn Tough, it used to be just a sock brand for me now, right? It used to be just a sock brand. I'm like, oh yeah, I have a couple pairs and I like them. But now I'm like, Dylan's recommended those. I'm going to look for them when I go to REI or when I go to the outdoor store, whatever. I'm going to look for these because Dylan said so. That's the same thing happening here with this story. Is people are going to say, I'm buying this brand because Sarah is the ideal version of what I want my baking to feel like, right? And so that indirect connection, that's where all the sales happen repeatedly down the line after the first one. Is Sarah's getting me to feel this way. This is the ideal future I want for my baking, and she's the gateway to the brand or to the product, and the brand benefits because of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, like what you're saying also makes me think, like if I saw that freezer tray in the grocery store, I would have that experience. I'd be like, I would think back to this email and this whole
Yep.
thing that was painted, and then think of my experience of digging the the spoon into the frozen cookie dough and be like, oh, I
Yep.
actually need that, you know.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah.
like they're presencing you to like a problem that you might have that you might not really think is a problem. You're just kind of like, that's how it is, you know. But then it has that effect of like, oh wait, I actually do need a solution to this or
Yeah.
want one.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of, I guess, the phrase meeting your customer where they're at.
Mm,
So that moment when the spoon hits the frozen cookie dough, it's like that moment right there, you have an emotional reaction of like, oh crap, I gotta wait for this to thaw, or how am I gonna get this stuff spread out, right? That right there, that this freezer tray means I don't even have to scoop. That's an answer to that emotion, right? It's a response to that. And you think, oh yeah, I remember something about not scooping. What was that? Oh, a freezer tray from this brand. Like it just clicks, right? And we do that all the time as humans. Like your brain's always looking to solve a problem and make things less, like cause less friction, right? Your brain takes up most of the energy in your body to function, right? And it's always looking for shortcuts. And if we can put our copy and our emotional moments from the brand into the lives of our customers and find those little moments and say, hey, our brand solves that, but tell a story around it. Our brand goes, shortcut, I know how to solve this. This is the brand that you should pick to do it. And that's not necessarily like manipulation. It's just understanding when that spoon hits the sourdough the cookie dough, it's like, that's a problem and we can solve it. Here's a freezer tray. Like it's magical what story can do around that.
yeah, dude, that's such a good point. That's like, I never even thought of it in that way. At like
Yeah.
that level of depth. And that's why I loved like talking through these things with, other marketers, because it's just like we can really just go deep to the deepest level of that like human psychology, you know?
Yeah. I guess you could call it like moment marketing, like find the moments in their lives where they're having emotional pain and
Mhm.
use your copy to meet them in that moment and have them remember, oh yeah, this brand or this person, Sarah, said that they could solve this emotional problem for me. Even though it's a cookie and it's a spoon and cookie dough, it's an emotional problem. It's emotional weight, right? It gives you an
Yeah.
emotional reaction. It's like, I can take that emotional pain away if you just buy this freezer tray.
Yeah. And make your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, just a little easier. Keep the joy going. Keep the bacon going. You don't have to stop. Like, and that's the beauty of it. So
Yeah. So these treats aren't strictly necessary, but they do make me excited to shove aside the frozen peas and hunt for treasure. And won't warm, gooey chocolate chip cookies make it slightly easier to say goodbye to old neighbors and daycare teachers and say hello to new ones? Here's to hoping. The freezer calls. Sarah.
that's a great like just conclusion, I guess you can call it. The one thing I noticed too with this, whoever wrote this is brilliant because the alliteration and just how they string each sentence together, it just feels smooth. It just feels like you can't stop reading it.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, I agree. Really, and like you said earlier, really great at just painting pictures in
Mhm.
the reader's mind. So
Yeah.
cool. So the email goes on. We have a couple different sections down here that we can kind of just briefly talk about. We have the recipes we're baking this week, a call to action to sign up for texts, discounts, recipe drops, new arrivals, and more. Fresh from the blog, another newsletter called Pizza School, and watch the savings stack up. So I know, like, at least with like from our background in direct response marketing, it's always like one call to action, like one singular call to action, and get them and drive them to that page. But like this brand is different. Like, and I think direct response can work for large brands and small brands. But I think it's more effective for like driving revenue for smaller brands, in the sense that like they might not have the advertising budget that big brands have, you know. So what do you think about just like having all of these different options laid out, like the recipes, the blog, and all this stuff?
Yeah, so I agree with you. There's that spectrum or that scale that you can slide along, being like straight branding. So it's just putting ideas in people's heads and trying to put ideas in their heads and plant seeds and hope they sprout later to cause an action. Or direct response, where as soon as they're done reading, say the freezer calls Sarah and I want them to click something, direct response.
Mhm.
You can land on that scale somewhere. and mix the two ends of the spectrum, right? So with that being said, I think with how they're doing this with Sarah in their email and having recipes we're baking this week, text, and there at the stuff at the bottom, I think it works. What I would test is removing one of these sections each time and on each send, and seeing if you get more focused click through or less click through, if you get more sales or less sales, like whatever your metrics are, because I do still believe in if you give somebody too many options, they will potentially get confused and back away and say, I don't know which one to choose. So if you were to go to the grocery store and realize that there are literally a dozen different types of mustard, which I think there's only like 5 or 6. I'm glad there's only 5 or 6. And if I'm wrong on that, tell me, because I only see 5 or 6. Because at that point, I'm like, I just need to pick one, go. Like, I don't want to look at it anymore. But if you have a dozen types of mustards, like you're going to step back and go, why is there a dozen? Your brain's going to go, why is there a dozen? I don't know which one to pick. If you have picked one before, you're going to dive in and say, I'm picking that one because I have before. Yeah, I took a risk the first time. I haven't failed. It worked. It hasn't betrayed me yet. I'm going to go with that and go. Brand loyalty, right? So with that being said, as long as the options you give don't cause confusion and they fit the concept that you're going with the email, that one concept of freeze now, feast later, I think you can do multiple options, right? So the Never Fail biscuits, the marbled matcha milk bread, the whole grain banana bread, Joy's brown butter chocolate chip cookies with pecans. If those can be frozen to feast later, show them. And I think they can, because they mentioned bread. They mentioned Sarah mentions bread, biscuits. I think.
Yeah, they're actually all mentioned.
They're all in there.
The text.
They're actually, that's why they use those. So
it's nice because also you get an image of it, right? Like,
you get a direct correlation to what was linked, and also you get an image. So it's almost like a second, like a follow-up from the text of like, if you didn't click on any of the links in the text, here's the recipes that I linked above, and you don't really say anything. It's just indirect. And images work to elicit curiosity and to get a click, because you're like, if you do it right, you can elicit curiosity and say, well, what is that, or why is that happening, or what does this look like? I want to see more. Why is this happening in the image? And it gets the click, right? So if somebody's like, I don't know what marbled matcha milk bread looks like, but it sounds delicious, and then they see the image, and that's the second time they've like thought about it in this email, they might click that now, because like, oh, I want to make that recipe, or that recipe sounds good, or this link, I don't know what it is, I don't want to click it. The image reassures them that it's a recipe or it's something else, right? So it really just comes down to, does it fit the concept you're going for? Does it add or reduce confusion? And then also value-wise, does it give your reader something more that gives them reassurance that they're in the right place, that they're doing the right thing? So if you can hit those 3 things, I think add any image, it can work.
Yeah, that's solid. And, I've also seen and used things like this where it's just kind of like a reoccurring block for like invite to text. And I'm sure in their other emails, they use that repetitively. And I think I've seen these also, their rewards program, and then their pizza school newsletter that shows up again and again. And I think that's just like good to have for, there's definitely a balance there. Like if it's always there, then your brain starts to not register that it's there. But then at the same time, you are kind of being shown that that's always an option. It's always something that you can click on. And then something that you remember, because maybe next time you go to make pizza or something like that, and you're trying to do one of these and you rip the dough in half, you might have that. You might be like, oh wait, I think King Arthur has that pizza school thing. I don't know. I don't really remember what it was, but I remember seeing the image. So I think that's useful sometimes too.
So and there's different ways you can introduce these newsletters. So I'm definitely more of a fan of, I would include it in every email, just for that reason you said, is because now it becomes background, right? So if you're driving on the highway and you take the same route to work every day, which people are starting to now drive to work and things, so that's good. But if you think back before everything that happened the last couple of years, you're driving to work, the same billboards on the side of the road every single day, 5 days a week, and you see it both ways, right? Back to and from work. After a couple of weeks, you don't even see the billboard. It's just a thing, an object out in the field, and you don't really register it, right? So for that reason, I would even suggest the pizza school. I would do like a week up to, like, each time they do a session, or like a 12-week course or a 6-week course, I would do like a week or 2-week pre-launch. I would send emails to the list about the school as it's going on and saying, hey, you're not in the school. This is what we're doing this week. If you want to join, you can for next session here, and have that warm people. And then do a post launch of like, we just finished up, and here in a month, we're going to start again. Here's some of the comments from people that took the school, and talk about like case studies and stuff. So I do like a pre, during, and post launch for the school, and remove it from this newsletter, because it'll do two things. I think it'll do two things. One, it'll create urgency for the next time it opens, because it's like, oh, I want to be a part of that group. And I think King Arthur does that, is like they're like creating their own little world that you can join. And as deep or as shallow as you want to get into that world, they're allowing you to do that at different levels. And if you want to go all the way and take a course, you want to make it so they have to take that next step, that call to adventure, right? Like the hero's journey. If they don't have that call to adventure, they'll never take the step. And that's where direct response shines, because you're asking them to do something. You're saying, hey, click this link, or get on the wait list, or read this email and join our course. Without that call to adventure, everybody will just sit at the starting line when the gun goes off, and they're going, yeah, I'm just going to hang out because I don't have any reason to run. Like there's no why, right? So that's why I would test removing it and doing like a pre and post launch and some fun emails in between of like maybe videos or TikTok reels or something, just to tease it and say, hey, look how much fun we're having. You probably should have joined. And that plays into FOMO, right?
Totally.
And yeah, I would build it out like that.
Yeah, and just having those like emails of like singular emails about it is just highlighting it in the reader's mind, and always knowing that that thing is going on. Sorry, I always say reader, and it's just from like my post-marketing copywriting world, but it's like reader, customer, prospect, whatever it is, you know, the person that's consuming the content.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool suggestion. Cool. So is there anything else that kind of like sticks out to you, or that we wanted to bring up about this email? Or
I think the last thing is, if you're doing text signups, so if we scroll back down to that part, the one thing I see a lot is brands will just throw sign up for our text at the bottom of their emails or in the middle, kind of like King Arthur did. But the thing King Arthur does that a lot of other brands don't do, and I think you need to check this if you're doing a sign up for a text banner like this, is give a reason why. Yeah. So you just say, sign up for our text, here's the number, text this to join. 99.9% of people aren't going to sign up, because it's like, okay, I don't want more text. I don't know who you are. There's no reason for me to do this. There's no reason for me to trade my attention for your text messages. And we need to give them that reason why. And King Arthur does. They say, hey, for discounts, recipe drops, new arrivals, and more, there's a reason why. And if you want any of those things or whatever more is, I think they could maybe use a couple more lines of explaining more, or just like what it's actually like to be on the list, of like how many texts you're going to get, when do we text, how do we text, what to expect when we do. If you don't hear from us for a while, this is what happens. Things like that. It takes away that skepticism or cynicism to sign up, and it reduces resistance. It lowers resistance to sign up. So yeah, that'd be the last thing, is if you're doing any kind of like banner call outs like this for text, for email, for a course or something, give a reason why. Like, why does it benefit the customer? And that'll help increase conversions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in that book, Influence, they talk about a study that they did. And I think they had people like kind of lined up at like a copy machine. And they had people like say, can I cut ahead of you? And then like, that was like the control group. And then the variable group was like, can I cut ahead of you because I want to be first? And just like adding that because, or just like, it doesn't even matter what really happened after that, like increase the amount of times that the person being asked that would allow them to go ahead of them. And that's like exactly what you're saying. Like, it's just like, sometimes people just need a reason, you know, of hearing that. It's like, well, sign up for our text because it's going to be great. And I mean, like, that's not the best call to action, but it's better than just saying sign up for texts. You know?
And it's what it's doing. I think what it's doing is, when you ask somebody to do something that they disagree with, or they don't want to say yes to, they feel discomfort, right? There's friction, there's resistance. And so the brain is saying, oh, nope, I don't want you to do this. And when you give them that because, it gives the brain a reason to say yes. It's saying, oh, there's friction here, or there's resistance. Here's a reason why you shouldn't be resisted. And it pairs those. It's like, it's the conflict and the solution, right? And so when you say, hey, can I cut in front of you? You cause a problem. But then you say, because, there's like a half solution, because I'm late. Boom, there's a pairing to the problem. It's solved. Yeah, sure. So when you create a problem by asking a question, you can also give a solution by giving an answer. And that's I think what's happening in the brain. And so yeah, when you're giving reasons why, like the reason why copy works so well is you're causing a problem by saying, hey, does your foot hurt? Hey, here's a foot massage person. Like it just problem solution, cause effect. Your brain just inherently works that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's pretty amazing the amount of like psychology type stuff that I've learned since embarking on this marketing and copywriting journey is pretty wild. I feel like,
It is.
oh, I could be a therapist. I kind of understand how the brain works.
Armchair therapist now, right? We're totally kidding.
But no, yeah, it's learning those things is just so important to get people to take action, because at the end of the day, like the people that are signing up for this newsletter, they want it. You know what I mean? They're opting into it. And then like it's your job as the marketer to give them all the chances to engage with your brand and solve the problems that they have and make their life better. And it's like, yeah, like using that psychology and knowing those things can be like in the hands of the wrong people can be devious,
Right.
especially if your end goal is not a great product or not a great service or not a great program. But when you have a good product, like you're going to want to like lean on all of those things so that you can get people to take action, because you know that you have a solution that's going to be great for them.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what differentiates the spam artist from the creative artist.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Chris, it's been really awesome doing this with you. I think we're talking about doing this more regularly. So if you guys enjoyed this, definitely tune in. I'll keep you up to date of when and where we're going to be doing it. And just thanks for being here again, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Yeah, awesome. All right, talk soon.